Robert Woods out for the year, the torn ACL. Odell Beckham's dad came in there with the sledgehammer, took him out because, listen, his son has got to play and get the targets. And when he does, he can produce.
That was a good sound effect.
See, was that one better?
Yeah.
So Robert Woods is out, and obviously Odell Beckham signed with the LA Rams. Kind of a shock that he went there. Some people are going to say, hey, Robert Woods is out, Odell Beckham, this screams great for him, but they are two different receivers, right? They play two different games. I would actually lean, honestly, for me, I would lean a little bit towards Van Jefferson coming in there a little bit and seeing his increase, but Odell Beckham will come in here. We saw right away they want to get him involved right away this week. I'm not overly concerned on his usage. I think it was only 15 plays he played, but he's only been there for a couple of days. So even that was somewhat of a surprise for me.
Well, they had to go to the no huddle pretty quickly in that game because they were just getting dominated. And not just on the scoreboard, but also time of possession. They were just running. San Francisco was running the ball over and over and over. I mean, it was like the Marshawn Lynch mentality of just over and over and over. Like, that's all they were doing. So they had to go no huddle, try to conserve clock. And when you've been on the team not even a full week, that makes it pretty difficult. So I do expect him to be more involved in the game plan next week. It just was not the time for that to happen.
And they're on bye this week, so that actually will help. That will help him, get acclimated to the offense a little bit during this bye week. But I mean, I don't know. I would imagine, like you were saying, Van Jefferson, I think, is going to be the guy that I think benefits for the next few weeks while he's getting up to speed. And I trust that so much that there was a person that was offering a trade and they countered back to me with Van Jefferson before all this stuff happened. And it was kind of hanging out there for me, and I hadn't decided. And then Odell signed there, and I was like, I'm gonna hold on to Van Jefferson because the same timing as the Robert Woods injury news. Because I think Van Jefferson is going to be the guy that is the quickest to, I think, have some fantasy relevance. They were talking up their 7th round or whatever draft pick that guy was as the replacement for Robert Woods, but I do think it is going to be Van Jefferson.
And he got some targets. I came out of Notre Dame.
He caught like one pass for like 7 or 8 yards or something.
Yeah, had an end zone look that was a little high. Should have caught that one.
Even Van Jefferson last night, he was actually getting targeted a decent amount, but him, like most of the team, really had a case of the dropsies where he was dropping passes that could have been big plays.
Ben Skowronek.
Ben, thank you. Do you guys think that did they know about Robert Woods' injury prior to them signing Odell Beckham?
It happened that Friday.
It happened. I wasn't sure because I know it was happening like very simultaneously. I wasn't sure if maybe they had an inkling because it seems like they came out of left field to kind of come up, for Odell's services.
They offered him $4 million. Essentially, they offered him the like he's saying, "Oh, I want to go play there," but like every other team offered him the veteran minimum, and I think the Rams offered him $4 million. Like they're paying him the most. That's what it comes down to.
No, I understand why he signed there. Like he's getting paid more money. He's in a better offense that's going to throw the ball more, and they're very throw centric. So I understand why he wants to go there. It just seems like they came out of left field, so I wasn't sure if they kind of had an inkling that Robert Woods was injured, and maybe it was worse than he was letting on.
No, he signed Wednesday, got hurt on Friday. I think it's just a situation in the Rams where it's like, hey, we got $4 million right here.
It was Wednesday that he signed?
Yeah, he agreed on Wednesday to go there. And they're like, hey, we got $4 million. This guy's available. We're already all in. Let's go. Let's get another weapon out here that can maybe stretch the field for us. And right now, do you think, I saw a poll on Twitter. I don't know if it was McDowell that posted it or who posted it, but what is Odell Beckham worth right now? And it ended up going like the number, it was like either early second, a mid second, or late second. And the majority that won was a late second. And I thought, like, for me, like in this offense with the opportunity for next year, even though Odell Beckham's literally since he turned 26 has only had 200-yard games, is this a guy you're willing to pay a second-round pick for if you're a contender right now? Like, would you go out there and pay a 2?
I'm not trying to obtain Odell Beckham right now.
I think I'd be willing to take a gamble going in knowing that I could be lighting that pick on fire, but also understanding what the upside could be in an offense that just lost its number 2 receiver. If I'm a contender, that's a late second. I'd be willing to take that gamble, but I understand why you say that, Matt. I'm a contender in a league. It's the Nerd Calculator League. Yeah. If somebody offered me a late second, I'd probably ship them off right now. And I don't. I'm not as
like
a contender.
As a contender, I'd ship them off. I don't care.
Remind me at the show break. I'm gonna send Matt a second round pick for Odell Beckham.
Go right ahead.
I need a receiver, so I will be doing it.
I do also, and I'll still send them off. That's how little faith I have in him actually producing.
I have little faith too. And if I do, let's say we made that trade, or if I own Odell Beckham, which I do in some leagues, like he's still on my bench until further notice, because the worst situation you do is when you have these kind of players is you trade for him and you just put him in your starting lineup. Like all of a sudden he's magically going to do better. One, he's switching teams, going to a new offense, and you have to assume the McVay offense, it's a complicated offense. And he's have to go in here, learn this offense, and be a factor already outside of the number one receiver in the league, which is Cooper Kupp. Higbee's involved there. They have Darrell Henderson. And, of course, they have Van Jefferson. So he does have some competition there to be relevant. I mean, you're hoping. Yeah, I guess you're right, Matt. For a second-round pick, you're trading for a guy that is going to be a spot start. Like you're not going to get any consistency with Odell Beckham. So
I've had him on my roster for 2 years. I've started him a handful of times because I needed to in bye weeks.
What do you think about Robert Woods? Is this a good opportunity to buy Robert Woods? We always say, with great tragedy comes great opportunity. And Robert Woods right now out for the year. Somebody's going to need a receiver. Maybe you have a receiver that you don't love on your team, an older receiver, or somebody that's doing really good. Would you be willing to bet on Robert Woods back in LA next year, who, when he went down, was a wide receiver 1 on the year, was wide receiver 12 going into the week? So Robert, they had the number 1 receiver and they had the number 12 receiver, 2 wide receiver 1s here in LA. Odell Beckham probably will not be back there next year. Is Robert Woods, now due to injury, is he a good buy low? Do you think you could obtain Robert Woods for a second round pick? And if so, say that was a price tag, the opposite for a second round pick for Robert Woods. Get a little bit up there in age. Would you pay a second for Robert Woods?
If I'm a contender and I obviously don't need him this year, I don't think that's a horrible move, because I think he'll end up being back there in LA and resuming whatever role he has this year. So yeah. So for that price, I think he's definitely worth it.
So you're a little thin at receiver. Like, you're not going to use him next year, but hey, I can use his help next. Like, thinking ahead for 2022 season, hey, here's a second-round pick. Or maybe you're going to get a second-round pick. Maybe there's just a receiver on your team that you can give up. And maybe you're not. Maybe you have a team that's just kind of struggle with injuries. You feel like you have a good team, little thin at receiver. Maybe you lost. Maybe a Calvin Ridley, lost him. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have another receiver you kind of lost early. So you're out of it this year. You have a decent draft pick anyways. But hey, I can use Robert Woods next year, because we all have those teams, right? Like, your team's a contender 100%, but then you just get that injury bug that mixed with the bye week bug, and all of a sudden you win this as a championship contender, and here you are week 11 going, dude, I'm 3-8, and I'm out of it. But your team's good, or maybe your points for are really good, but your points against are the most in the league, and you have a solid team. But for a fact you use Robert Woods this next year. I think he'd be a good buy for either receiver I do not have to help lose my draft pick, or a second-round pick.
Right. Obviously it gets tricky when you're projecting a whole year out, and then you're talking about a team that's not good, so you're going to be giving up a high second-round draft pick as opposed to like a low second-round draft pick in your first scenario.
I seen the trade finder right now. He went for a 22-second, like literally yesterday.
Right, but the draft next year is not the deepest draft either. So if you want to get for sure production out of a second round draft pick, then I don't hate that move.
Okay.
The trickiest part in all of it, because overall I do agree I would do that, but we are talking about a receiver that is going to be turning 30 next year. This will be, I think they actually have an out in his contract either after this year or the year after. I'll have to look and see for sure. But you also have young receivers like Van Jefferson coming up. They did draft Tutu Atwell. I still don't know why. But they did draft him.
That's funny because I forgot about that. You're right.
Second round pick. There was plenty of things they could have used. That was not one of them.
No. They hate second round draft picks. It's fine.
They hate all draft picks. But so it would definitely have to be a contender situation, because if I'm in a rebuild, I don't trust that in 2 years that he's still fantasy relevant. Could be, but it's a tough rebuild, thing to trust.
No way. This is strictly contender. I mean, I see a trade here in the Dynasty Nerds trade finder as well. Donovan Peoples-Jones for Robert Woods, which, again, maybe you drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones in the third round, and you're a possibly contender next year. You have somebody you can give away for somebody can give you wide receiver 1 numbers, at the very least mid-range to high-end wide receiver 2 numbers for next year. Again, even if it's just 1 year, those championship windows come and go so quickly.
They do.
These are kind of moves that I would like to make.